Welcome back to another episode of Think Tank Theater. I'm Bailey Kimmel here with Daniel Narotsky, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the GCC 6000 IP PBX silo. We've covered the firewall and a general overview in previous episodes, and we will continue to do deep dives on every piece of the GCC. So we'll get started today with the IP PBX. Thanks for joining us. So, can I make and receive calls through the GCC 6000?
You absolutely can. Once you enable the IP PBX feature and go in and start programming that through the GDMS portal, again, their cloud-based remote access management tool, you can add extensions, add your SIP trunks, and then you have a fully functioning, fully featured IP PBX.
So, do I get to keep my office phones, or are we going to have to replace all of our hardware?
Yeah, since this is an IP PBX, this would be a premise-based phone system. So if you had IP phones that were SIP phones, you could keep those and then reprogram them to work on the GCC.
So what are our main differences in the IP PBX silo with Grandstream and then just their regular UCM?
That's a really good question, and there are quite a few overlapping features, but there are a few differences. So some of the overlapping features, the GCC is going to be the fully licensed and fully featured UCM software. So you're going to have everything feature-wise that you have on the UCM available on the GCC. So anything from your ring groups to your inbound and outbound routes to your extensions to your IVR, all of those things are going to be the same. But some of the differences when you start looking at UCM and GCC, GCC comes out of the box with 12 extensions. So you can only have 12 users. And so in order to upgrade that, GCC has its own set of licenses that can take you up to 200 users.
Wow.
So the UCMs, they had a different set of licensing that you would use to grow that for remote licensing and things. But GCC has its own specific licenses to grow its on-prem users.
Okay.
UCM, if you really wanted to grow users, you just bought a bigger box.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, so with the UCM licenses, there are some UCM remote control licenses that allow you to increase, like I said earlier, the amount of remote users. Those same licenses can be used with the GCC, so that would be for your wave users or remote phones, remote desktop phones.
So are remote people, they can use their mobile phones, or do they need hardware?
Either one. They could have a remote desk phone that would tie into this GCC because of the GDMS remote management tool, but you could use the Wave app on your cell phone. You could use the Wave app on a laptop or desktop as a desktop mobile version.
Does that feel pretty seamless as far as forwarding calls and holds to someone's mobile phone?
Yeah, it really does, and it allows you to not have to give out your mobile phone number and just stay on the GCC's SIP trunks, so that office number is what you're presenting.
So we talked about the firewall in previous episodes, and you said it has this trickle-down effect. So how does the firewall play into the IP PBX?
So once you have the firewall enabled and you're using that, your rules that you would have, for example, for a SIP trunk provider. Some SIP trunk providers ask you to open up certain IPs to allow them in and not be blocked. So if you set that up at the firewall level, you don't have to also go set that up at the IP PBX silo level.
And then talk to us a little bit about, setup and management. Is this a plug and play, or is it going to take some work over the years?
It will be more plug and play than some work. Again, when you first plug a GCC unit in, it comes up as a networking device. And there's a key to that, so I'm going to come back to that. But once you turn on the IP PBX function, then you can go in and manage the IP PBX function, and it's going to look and feel very similar to your UCMs. It's going to have the same layout and the same graphical interface. But the cool part though, and this kind of comes back to licensing, one of the reasons I think people are starting to look at why put that IP PBX software on top of this networking device, this firewall and router, because when it pulls into GDMS as a networking device first, you're automatically given that remote management. With Grandstream's standalone UCM, it's an add-on license you have to purchase. It's called their admin only license, and that allows you to remote into those UCM IP PBXs to remotely program them. With GCC, you don't need that license. It's built into the device.
Right, super convenient. Well, that concludes our episode for the IP PBX. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for the GCC 6000 series by Think Tank Theater.